Maybe you've been carrying a quiet ache, a sense that money keeps slipping through the cracks, no matter how hard you work, like water draining through fingers you can't quite close. Perhaps you've said to yourself, I'm smart, I'm capable. Why does wealth feel like a door that opens for others and stays shut for me? If that's you, breathe. You're not late. And you're not broken, you're here. And being here already begins to change the story. Because what we're seeking tonight is not a trick, not a chant, not a wish disguised as strategy. We are seeking wisdom, ancient, steady, tested in the dust and daylight of real life. Wisdom before wealth, order before increase, peace before profit. I want to speak to more than your plans. I want to speak to your nervous system, to the part of you that tightens when a bill arrives, that flinches when a risk appears, that wakes at 3 a.m. counting and recounting. Your body has learned certain patterns around money: fear, urgency, hiding. And those patterns can be softened. Calm breath steadies the heart. Steadiness restores clear thinking. Clear thinking invites better choices. Better choices, repeated, become a quiet power. This is spiritual and practical at once. Your inner atmosphere shapes your outer actions, and over time, actions shape outcomes. When your peace goes before you, your plans can finally walk upright. The tradition we draw from belongs to Solomon, not as a museum piece, but as a living architecture for a life that holds prosperity without losing the soul that holds it. This is not prosperity as noise or display. It is prosperity as order. Fields prepared before houses built, clean hands that sleep well, steady plans that outwork frenzy, rivers that move instead of ponds that go stale, counsel that keeps you from driving on with a blindfold. These are not slogans. They are patterns. Patterns you can learn, patterns you can live, patterns that let wealth become the echo of a well-ordered life. If you've been chasing the echo, you know the exhaustion, the grind without growth, the purchases meant to numb rather than nourish, the opportunities that seemed bright and then left a kind of film on the heart. Let's release the shame around that. No judgment here. Only a gentle, firm turning of the face toward light. Your brain is teachable. Your habits are malleable. Your attention is a doorway. When attention returns to wisdom, the nervous system exhale follows, and with it, space for patient, intelligent action. Again and again, we will return to this movement, from frenzy to quiet, from quiet to clarity, from clarity to clean action. From clean action to increase, that doesn't cost you yourself. You will hear refrains in this journey, not to hypnotize you in the cheap sense, but to inscribe truth in the places where panic once wrote its name. Wisdom before wealth, order before the gold, clean hands compound, sharpen before you swing, the river, not the reservoir, counsel at the gate. Each phrase is a handle you can grasp on a difficult day. Each phrase is a breath you can take when your chest tightens. Each phrase is a rhythm for your week, steady, repeatable, humane. Consider how your body feels when money is mentioned. Jaw, shoulders, breath. Notice the micro shifts as you sit here, listening. Safety grows in increments. Trust grows in layers. When the mind senses order, the body loosens its guard. When the body loosens, the mind can finally plan without the static of fear. This is why we begin with wisdom. Wisdom regulates, and regulation makes room for diligence that isn't frantic, generosity that isn't performative, counsel that isn't a last resort. Wealth then becomes less a chase and more a byproduct, the fruit of roots you have tended in quiet places. I'm going to ask you questions as we walk, not to accuse you, but to awaken you. What if your next level isn't hidden in a new hack, but in an old truth you've never truly practiced? What if your wealth is waiting on the other side of one decision to align the inner life with the outer plan? What if the door hasn't been locked at all, but the handle turns only when your hand is steady? Let the questions do their work. Let them stir you, but not scare you. Let them invite you to a different tempo, the tempo of wisdom. Before we step into the 5 ancient laws the modern world forgot, let this settle. You are more than your current balance. You are more than your last mistake. You are worthy of a life that does not sacrifice peace for profit. And you are capable, fully capable of practicing truths that will change the way you work, give, invest, and decide. Breathe again. Feel the floor beneath your feet, the chair beneath your body, the air as it enters and leaves. This is where it starts, in the body, in the breath, in a mind that is becoming clear. Wisdom before wealth, order before increase. From here, we proceed. Imagine the stone yard before dawn. The air holds the weight of quiet, not yet cut by the noise of a city that will later admire the finished work. A mason runs a hand across a cold block, feeling the grain, reading the direction of strength and fracture. There is no applause here, no spotlight, no glittering surface, only patience, only sequence, only order. Before the gold, there is order. Before the harvest, there is fieldwork. Before the public house, there is private preparation. If your life has felt like sprinting from fire to fire, while wealth remains a distant echo, this is where a gentler path begins. Not in a rush, not in a frenzy, in the steady making of ground. Perhaps your days have been crowded with tasks that look important and feel urgent, yet leave the soul exhausted and the accounts thin. The body knows when life is scattered, shoulders tense, breath shortens, sleep breaks. This is not a moral failure, it is a nervous system signaling that it has been asked to move without a map. The human brain loves pattern and despises chaos. When your days land in a rhythm, the body releases its grip. When your hours gather under a simple structure, a sense of safety returns. With safety comes attention. With attention comes consistency. With consistency, the quiet mathematics of growth begins to work in your favor. There is a popular idea that a better mindset alone will open every door. Thought is powerful and gratitude is medicinal, yet thought without structure is like a lamp without oil. Bright for a moment, dim by noon. Consider the way a vine climbs. It does not float in the air by desire alone. It grows steady because a trellis gives it shape. Wealth behaves in the same way. Effort climbs higher when it is held by a frame. Vision flourishes when the day beneath it has a place for each part to rest. A plan that begins at the level of rhythm will carry farther than a plan that begins at the level of wish. Solomon's counsel moves with this wise sequence. Prepare your work in the open field, then build your house. The order matters. The field speaks of foundations, of systems, of what must be made ready under daylight. After that, the house can rise. The story of the great temple carries the same melody. Stones were shaped off-site with such care that when they were brought together, no hammer or chisel sounded in the sacred place. The loud work happened earlier. The quiet work made the later beauty possible. This pattern is not just historical, it is neurological and spiritual. Early preparation lowers stress, which opens space for clean decision-making, which leads to outcomes that do not tremble under pressure. Order is not a rigid grid or a cold schedule that steals joy. Order is kindness to your future self. It is the way you place the most important tasks, where your best energy can reach them. It is the gentle guard you place around the morning so that the day is not stolen before it begins. It is a simple rhythm that ensures value is created, value is shared, and value is cared for. Some find that naming a short list of priorities and protecting a few blocks of deep work changes everything. Some find that a small evening review, lit by a quiet lamp, clears the path for the next sunrise. Each person will discover a personal cadence, yet the principle remains. When there is a home for what matters arrives. The body responds to order the way soil responds to rain. The amygdala eases its alarm. The chest softens. The breath deepens. The prefrontal regions wake to their work with focus and calm. Decisions slow down where they should and speed up where they can. The language of worry grows quieter. The language of clarity grows louder. You feel it as less frantic scrolling, fewer impulsive purchases, more attention to the craft that actually feeds your life. You notice a new steadiness in the way you answer messages, the way you price your time, the way you set boundaries around what drains you. The change is not a single event. It is an atmosphere. Without order, Money tends to slip through fissures that are hard to see in the rush. Missed follow-ups, unkept promises, hidden fees that thrive in confusion, emergency after emergency because nothing was placed where it belonged. The heart calls this bad luck. Wisdom calls it a house built before a field was prepared. There is no shame in recognizing this. There is relief. Relief that comes when you realize the problem is not you as a person. The problem is the sequence. When the sequence is restored, outcomes begin to match intention. Think of the images that speak to you. A workbench with tools laid out in simple lines, a calendar that breathes, not crammed edge to edge, but holding space for what truly matters. A desk cleared for a new project, a room that smells of paper and cedar, where you can hear your own thoughts. Now imagine your week shaped by that same calm. Not every hour scripted, just the essential tasks placed where they will be honored. The day then moves like a river in its banks. Freedom inside form, creativity inside structure. The gold comes later, the order comes first. There is a humility that grows in this way of living. You begin to love the unseen hours. You begin to cherish the tasks no one praises. You feel prosperity arriving not as a rush of fire, but as a steady dawn. Reputation builds because you do what you said you would do. Opportunities arrive because you have room to meet them. Emergencies lessen because your ground is prepared. The soul, once brittle from hurry, becomes resilient again. You carry yourself differently. People notice without knowing why. Order has given your presence weight. You may notice that your language changes as well. Less frantic talk about how busy you are. More honest speech about what truly matters. You stop glamorizing exhaustion. You start honoring depth. The pace is still strong when it needs to be, but it is no longer panicked. It has the feel of someone who has sharpened the tool before lifting it. When the day ends, there is a quiet pride, not because everything was perfect, but because the sequence was respected. Field before house, order before the gold. Let this question rest in your chest until it answers itself. What must be put in order this week so money has somewhere wise to land? There are moments when a shortcut looks like mercy, a promise of quick relief after a long season of strain, a small exaggeration on an invoice, a silence about a defect, a handshake that feels slippery but shines with a chance you have been waiting for. The body often knows before the mind admits it. A hollow feeling under the ribs, a restless sleep. Eyes that avoid mirrors. The soul understands the cost, even when the deal looks sweet. Wealth built in the dark has a way of trembling in the light. Wealth gathered with a steady hand can rest. Integrity is not a poster on a wall. Integrity is a nervous system that does not flinch when the phone rings. It is a ledger that can sit in daylight without a page turned down. When the inner life and the outer actions match, the brain stops burning fuel to hide the truth. The shoulders loosen. The breath finds a deeper rhythm. Focus returns because attention is not being spent on cover stories. This is not a sermon about perfection. This is the quiet science of peace. When the body is not busy managing secrets, it grows strong enough to build. Haste often dresses up as intelligence. It says that speed is the only way. It says that everyone cuts corners and that only fools hesitate. Yet the heart keeps score in a different ink. It notices how fast money runs from hands that grasp and how gently it gathers where trust is thick. The old wisdom whispers that dishonest gain thins out. It says that patience carries its own interest. One path feels like a sprint on ice. The other feels like a slow walk that never slips. Clean hands do not mean easy days. They mean days that do not require a second story to survive the first. They mean that the mind is free to plan rather than to cover. Neuroscience speaks of cognitive load, of how deception taxes memory and steals processing power. Spiritual life speaks of light and shadow, of how the soul grows heavy when it must hide. Both maps point to the same conclusion. Integrity multiplies strength. Deceit divides it. Picture a bookkeeper in a small room with a window open to morning light. Papers are arranged in quiet lines. The ink is clear. Nothing is dramatic. Nothing is staged. There is only the relief of things that add up. Now picture the same room when choices blur the record. Receipts tucked away. Entries delayed. a figure that almost matches if the eye is willing to squint. The air feels different. The room feels smaller. The brain carries the weight and the body pays the fee. There is a story you may have tasted in your own life, a deal that would pay well if you look away for a moment, a partnership where the math works, but the spirit of it does not. A client who asks for a favor that bends the truth only a little. The first yes opens the door for a second yes. The second yes builds a hallway for a third. What began as a small bend becomes a shape that cannot stand. People sometimes call the collapse a sudden storm. Often, it is only the final bead of water breaking loose from a roof that has been leaking for years. Trust is a kind of currency that compounds faster than money. People speak to one another. Reputations travel in rooms you will never enter. When your name is told with confidence, doors open that no marketing plan could pry. When your name is told with a caution, the best opportunities pass by without a sound. Integrity seems slow because it plants rather than plunders. Yet seed knows something the thief does not know. Seasons turn, roots deepen, harvest follows its own clock. There is another side to this that matters. Integrity is not only a shield against loss. Integrity is a force that draws order toward you. Mentors feel safe to share knowledge. Partners feel safe to bring larger deals. Teams relax enough to create without fear. The atmosphere around you shifts from suspicion to safety. People bring their best ideas because they sense that credit will be handled with honor. The room breathes, the work flows. This is not sentiment. This is strategy carried by character. Some hear this and feel the sting of memory. Times when a weak moment left a mark. Times when hunger for security pressed the soul into choices that did not match its values. Shame will try to seize the stage here. It will try to say that the story has been written and cannot be revised. Wisdom offers a kinder reading. The past explains, it does not define. The present is clay. The future is a field that still waits for a steady hand. Where there has been a bend, there can be a straightening. Where there has been a shadow, there can be a window. The body responds to clean choices with signals as real as a pulse. The heart slows, the jaw releases, the eyes lift. Even money decisions come with less static. Prices are set with clarity rather than apology. Deadlines are honored without the ache of pretense. Conversations with clients feel lighter because there are no hidden hooks. You start to notice the accumulation of small respect, calls returned, names spoken with warmth, invitations that arrive because someone told someone that you can be trusted when pressure rises. Haste will keep calling. It will dress in new clothes. It will say that this time is different. It will tell you that other people are winning by breaking the rules you honor. Yet look closely at that kind of victory. It is victory that demands a new performance every day. It is victory that cannot sleep. The soul understands the difference between noise and music. Fast money is noisy. Lasting money has a rhythm you can live with. There is a phrase worth keeping where your eyes can catch it on hard mornings. Integrity compounds. Say it when the easy path sparkles. Say it when your account balance whispers of fear. Say it when waiting feels like loss. Integrity compounds. You may not notice the interest in a day or a week, but the year will tell the truth. People will be able to trust your word and your work. Opportunities that match who you are will arrive on their own feet. If a quiet ache rises while hearing these lines, let it rise and let it pass. The ache simply means you care about becoming whole. Clean hands are not a trophy for the perfect. Clean hands are a daily posture that keeps the heart clear and the mind sharp. Over time, this posture becomes a path. The path becomes a life. The life becomes a legacy that rests in peace. Let a single question sit beside you like a small lamp that does not go out. Where am I trading tomorrow's reputation for today's rush? There is a kind of exhaustion that feels noble on the surface and hollow underneath. Long days, longer nights, the calendar full and the heart thin. You swing and the tree barely moves. You tell yourself that effort is everything, yet something inside whispers that force without edge only bruises the bark. This whisper is not criticizing your work ethic. It is honoring it. It is inviting a different kind of strength. Before the swing, the edge. Picture a craftsman at a quiet bench before the sun lifts the color of the sky. The tool rests on the table. The work will wait. Steel touches stone. A soft rhythm begins. There is no audience for this part, no applause. Only the decision to make the next hour count more than the last. The world sees the cut. The craftsman knows the sharpening. Wealth behaves the same way. The visible result is a byproduct of invisible preparation. When the edge is dull, the body pays. Muscles strain, breath shortens, tempers rise, mistakes multiply. It is easy to believe that more hours will fix what only more wisdom can heal. You can feel the difference in your nervous system when you move from grind to glide. The mind grows spacious, the shoulders drop from your ears. Choices line up rather than collide. This is not softness, this is precision. Precision is the friend of peace and the engine of profit. Sharpening is not a luxury for the rare, quiet day. Sharpening is part of the work. It is a devotion to the craft that lifts earnings without lifting panic. It asks for a few clear questions. Where is the friction that repeats? Where do tasks take twice the time they should? Where does confusion slow the hand that should move with grace? These questions do not accuse, they illuminate. They turn on a light in the workshop of the mind. Consider the chef who takes a breath before service and runs the blade across the stone. The kitchen is about to roar. Orders will stack high. People will watch for perfection. The edge is a promise that effort will be elegant. Consider the musician who tunes the instrument while the room settles. The melody is smoother because the strings were brought into balance. Consider the carpenter who checks the measure again and again. The cut is clean because the thinking was clean. There is a spiritual rhythm hidden here. Preparation lowers fear. Lower fear restores clarity. Clarity guides the hand. The hand produces steady fruit. The heart rests. The cycle repeats with less waste and more joy. When you honor this rhythm, you stop paying interest on hurry. You stop building plans that need rescue every week. You begin to experience momentum that does not burn you to create it. Your brain loves to conserve energy. When you practice the same movements with care, pathways strengthen and effort falls. Repetition with attention grows speed without rushing and accuracy without strain. A simple system here, a clean template there, a better tool across the table, and suddenly the hour opens wider. What once felt like a wall turns into a door. The work is still work, but it carries a lighter weight. There is also a quiet boldness that grows when you commit to sharpening. You feel worthy of the fees you charge because your skill has weight. You feel ease in negotiations because your preparation gives you options. You walk into rooms that once scared you, and you realize you are not smaller than the task. The body hears this message and responds. The heart rate steadies, the jaw unclenches, your voice lands with calm. People trust calm. Sharpening protects relationships as well. When your tools and systems fit the task, you do not overpromise in fear. You speak clearly about what is possible and by when. You deliver with breathing room. Partners notice, clients notice, the people who care about you notice. The atmosphere around your name grows warm. Opportunities come not only because you work hard, but because you work wise. It is tempting to think that learning and refining will slow you down. For a single morning, perhaps it does. Over a season, it is the only thing that speeds you up without a hidden cost. The soul knows the difference between frantic and focused. Frantic drains, focused renews. The former ends the day with a buzzing head and a restless night. The latter ends the day with a clear mind and a sleep that actually repairs what the day used. Sharpening has a sound. It is the sound of the phone left in another room while you study. It is the sound of a clean desk before you begin. It is the sound of a tool fitted to a task. It is the sound of a small habit repeated until it becomes second nature. No fireworks, no fanfare, only the confidence that rises when your effort is multiplied by design. You may remember seasons when you swung harder and harder and still felt behind. That memory does not mean you are incapable. It means no one taught you that preparation is power. You may feel late to this truth. You are not late. You are right on time to let wisdom hold the handle of your day. The edge you build now can redeem years that felt wasteful. Nothing is lost when it becomes a lesson that refines your touch. There is a phrase worth tucking into your pocket, like a small stone that reminds you of where you are going. Sharpen before you swing. When the day crowds you, whisper it. When opportunity appears, whisper it. When fear pushes for haste, whisper it. Each time you remember, your body will shift by a degree. Each degree will change your path by a distance that surprises you when you look back. Let a question rest near your breath until it opens a path you can follow. What one skill or tool or system, if sharpened, would multiply your yield in the season ahead? Picture still water held too long in a bowl. The surface looks calm, yet underneath the quiet, something begins to spoil. Now picture a river moving through sun and shadow, curving around stone, accepting what enters and letting go of what must leave. The river is alive because it moves. Money behaves in the same way. When fear turns it into a hoarded display, it grows stale and tense. When wisdom turns it into flow, it gathers friends and finds paths you could not have mapped alone. Scarcity is not only an idea. Scarcity is a sensation. It lives in the throat that tightens when a bill arrives, and in the stomach that drops when a price changes. The body remembers old winters and acts as if every season will be a winter. Generosity begins to soothe those memories. Calm giving tells the nervous system that there is enough for life to continue. Breath deepens. Shoulders lower. The mind regains access to creative options that panic had hidden. Spiritual life calls this seed and harvest. Emotional science calls it safety and regulation. Both point to the same river. The wisdom we follow carries a simple image. Spread your portion across many fields because you do not know which field will prosper. The language is agricultural, and yet it still reads like tomorrow. A single source for all income feels strong until a storm passes over it. Many channels feel modest at first and then prove quietly powerful. The river is not one line. The river is a braid that keeps moving even when a branch runs dry. Generosity is more than a moral pose. Generosity is an economic force. It strengthens the web you live in. It allows trust to accumulate around your name. It draws counsel, collaboration, and opportunity the way moving water draws the life of a valley. People lean toward those who give with clarity and dignity. People open doors for those who treat money as a servant of purpose rather than as a stage for performance. There is a pattern here that heals the spirit, while it helps the balance sheet. Giving resets the story from fear to meaning. Living within a clear boundary steadies the nerves and lowers the temptation to chase status. Investing with patience plants trees that will shade future days. Learning on purpose keeps the mind green so that new work can grow when old work withers. Flow like this does not shout, it hums. Notice how stagnation whispers to you. It says to hold tightly because nothing good is coming. It says to stop growing because growth is expensive. It says to wait for perfect conditions before you share or study. Yet the river never waits for a perfect bend. The river turns the bend it meets. When money is kept moving with honesty and care, life tends to meet it with unexpected bridges. The opposite is familiar to many. A reservoir built from fear becomes brittle. A brittle plan cracks under weight. Think of your life as a watershed. Work is a headwater. Relationships are tributaries. Habits are banks that keep the movement steady. In a healthy watershed, there is giving that returns to the community like rain. There is daily living that nourishes without drowning. There is investing that deepens the main channel. There is learning that sends fresh springs into dry months. None of this requires drama. It requires rhythm. Your own history may push back here. Perhaps there were years when every coin mattered and you learned to grip until your fingers ached. That memory deserves respect. It made you resourceful. It kept you alive. Yet the same grip that saved you then may be the grip that is starving your river now. The body can learn a new message. There is enough to breathe. There is enough to share. There is enough to plant. With each small act of release, the message grows louder and the fear grows quiet. Diversifying the ways money reaches you is an act of humility and hope. Humility because it admits that not every plan will flourish in every season. Hope because it trusts that new streams can begin where none existed before. A craft developed beside your main work, a partnership that matches your values, a simple service refined until it serves well. These are all channels that keep the water moving. When a drought touches one branch, the others carry what matters until rain returns. The benefits are not only financial. Flow lightens the heart. It invites community. It gives you stories that are not about taking but about building. It changes the way you walk into a room. You are no longer a reservoir guarded by a wall. You are a river connected to land and sky, aware of seasons, ready for turns, generous with the life you carry. People feel this without being able to name it. They call it presence. They call it peace. You may notice that spending becomes cleaner in this light. Less buying to numb, more buying to nourish. You begin to see that generosity is not a hole in the bucket. It is the current that keeps the water from going stale. You begin to notice how learning renews your imagination, how a brief study session unlocks a fresh approach, how a skill practiced in quiet becomes a bridge to income you did not expect. Flow builds its own momentum. There is a phrase that can live beside the others we have gathered. Flow over hoard. Whisper it when fear argues for a vault. Whisper it when shame says you have nothing to offer. Whisper it when pride tries to turn generosity into a show. Flow over hoard. The words will soften the grip and restore movement. The words will remind you that wealth is not a trophy on a shelf. Wealth is a river that runs through a life that knows what it stands for. Let a final question glide into the quiet that follows and take its place inside you like a steady drum. Where should I open a new channel in giving, in investing, or in learning to restore flow? At the edge of an ancient city, there was a gate where elders met the morning. Stone benches warmed by the first light, faces lined not only by years, but by questions carried and wrestled and resolved. People came with plans and left with clarity, not always the answer they expected, often a better one. The gate was not a place of spectacle. It was a place where wisdom slowed the pulse and steadied the hand. When we speak of counsel, we are returning to that gate. There is a loneliness that can dress itself as strength. The lone mind decides in a closed room and calls it courage. Yet the body reveals the truth. A quickened heart before a signature, a tight jaw after a meeting, a mind replaying conversations too late to change them. Isolation magnifies noise. Counsel filters it. In emotional life, this is called co-regulation. Nervous systems borrow calm from each other. Breath deepens when a trusted presence sits nearby. Thought clears. Options appear. The inner weather shifts. Some decisions feel heavy because they carry more than numbers. They carry the story you tell about who you are. In those moments, personal bias becomes a fog. Confirmation becomes a hunter that only sees what it wants to see. A circle of steady voices can lift you above that fog. One person who sees the craft and its skill. One person who understands money and how it moves. One person who cares about your soul and will name what greed or fear will not name. A council of three, not a crowd, not a chorus. A small gate where truth can be spoken without a raised voice. Picture a table and the decision you are carrying. Place the most attractive outcome in the center and hold it up to light that is not your own. Ask what could go wrong without assuming that it will. Walk the path backward from the moment of celebration to the first step and notice where the ground might break. This is the quiet art some call a pre-mortem. It is not pessimism. It is love for your future self. It is the simple awareness that wise plans survive honest questions. Counsel changes the emotional cost of risk. Alone, risk can feel like a cliff. With companions, it feels like a bridge built stone by stone. The brain responds, cortisol falls, memory improves, creative regions wake up. You stop arguing with yourself and begin to listen. You stop defending a fragile plan and begin to refine a living one. People sometimes imagine that seeking counsel will make them look small. The paradox is that counsel makes you sturdy. The room can feel your steadiness when you have already tested your ideas against firm ground. Not every voice qualifies as a gate. Flattery weakens structure. Cynicism rots timber. There is a tone that signals safety without softness. It says the truth with warmth. It names risk without panic. It protects your integrity more fiercely than your image. When you find voices like that, your body recognizes them. Breathing slows, shoulders settle. You hear yourself think in full sentences again. Something inside whispers that you are not alone in building this life. The power of counsel is not only in avoiding pain, it is in multiplying good. When wise people gather around a choice, they tend to find angles you did not know were there. A partnership that adds reach without adding noise. A sequence that halves the timeline without rushing the craft. A pricing frame that honors your work and serves your clients. This is the mathematics of many minds. The sum is larger than the parts because humility invited light into the room. There is another gift hidden in counsel. It is the strength to say no with peace. Some opportunities glitter and still do not belong to you. Your body knows this before your mouth will speak it. Counsel gives that knowing a voice. You leave the table lighter because the decision has been held in hands that care for more than your gain. Over time, this lightness becomes a recognizable presence. People feel the difference between the person who chases every open door and the person who chooses a few doors well. The image of the gate remains useful because it keeps counsel close to earth. This is not a distant boardroom or a performance for approval. This is a simple place where life is named as it is, where character matters, where memory is long enough to see patterns and kind enough to forgive growing pains, where victory is measured by more than money, where the question is not only can this work, but should this work? You might think of seasons when counsel arrived late or not at all, deals you carried alone, losses that still sit heavy in the chest. Let the sorrow be seen and then let it release. Those memories now know what they needed. They can teach without ruling. Today can be different. The gate can open again. You can hear your own voice joined by a few others who want your good. A quiet line worth keeping close rises here. Plans stabilized by counsel. Say it in tense weeks. Say it when pride tempts you to hurry. Say it when fear tempts you to hide. Plans stabilized by counsel. The words are not an order. They are a path back to the gate when you have wandered. Let one question wait with you until it finds its answer in the days ahead. Who must be at my gate this year? And what decision will I submit to their scrutiny first? There is a moment in every long journey when the steps begin to find a cadence, not a march and not a drift, something quieter and truer, a rhythm that the body can trust and the mind can follow. After the loud years of chasing results, there comes a gentler intelligence that arranges the inner room first and lets the outer room follow. Wealth begins to echo that inner arrangement. Wisdom before wealth, order before increase. Clean hands compound, sharpen before you swing. The river, not the reservoir, counsel at the gate. When these phrases stop being ideas and start becoming atmosphere, the days stop slipping and begin to sing. Imagine a week as a small sanctuary built with simple materials and careful attention. Dawn holds a space where plans are shaped without hurry, where the field is prepared in daylight and the house rises later with fewer cracks. Midday honors the craft with a clear edge. Work that is exact without being tense, a kind of strength that does not grind the soul down to prove that it exists. Evening carries a brief accounting in clean light, an unafraid look at numbers and promises, a whisper of gratitude for what was stewarded and what was learned. This is not a show for others. This is a way of breathing that the nervous system recognizes as safety and the spirit recognizes as truth. The heart responds to sequence the way a house responds to strong beams hidden beneath the paint. There is a firmness underfoot that changes how you walk through decisions. When order leads, you feel it in the jaw that no longer clenches before opening a message. in the breath that steadies before a choice that used to trigger a reflex of fear. The brain quiets the old alarms because you have given it a map, and with a map, it stops looking for danger in every shadow. Calm becomes productive again. Quiet becomes powerful again. What once took a day of scrambling becomes a few hours of clear movement because the path is known. Integrity takes its place inside this rhythm, like a cornerstone that keeps the walls true. The ledger rests where the light can reach it, and because the light can reach it, the mind is free to build rather than to hide. Trust begins to stack in layers that no one can see until the room suddenly feels larger and brighter and full of doors that were not visible from the old angle. People sense the difference without knowing why. Your words carry the ease of alignment, and ease draws welcome, and welcome draws work that fits the soul that will do it. Diligence becomes wiser inside a rhythm like this. The hands still move, but they move with an edge that multiplies effort and protects the body from the kind of fatigue that steals joy. Learning is not an interruption. Learning is the quiet forge where future hours are made lighter and more valuable. Systems appear not as cages, but as riverbanks that keep the current strong and healthy. The day spends less energy on friction and more on flow. Results arrive with less noise and more peace. Generosity and diversification find their lanes without argument, because fear no longer sits in the driver's seat. Giving becomes a declaration of meaning rather than a performance or a tremble. And meaning feeds endurance when circumstances test resolve. Multiple streams do not feel like a frantic scatter. They feel like a wise watershed that keeps life moving even when one branch runs low. The atmosphere around money shifts from brittle to flexible, from hoard to flow, from tense to relational. The river is alive because it moves, and so is a life that treats wealth as a servant of purpose. Counsel circles the weak like strong walls around a garden. Decisions that once grew in isolation are now tended in conversation, and conversation cleans the lens through which you see. The question becomes less about proving a point and more about discovering the path that keeps peace intact while profit grows. When ideas are tested at a trusted gate, the body hears the verdict and releases its grip. The voice softens without losing strength. Choices carry weight without carrying dread. You can feel the difference in your sleep and in your mornings. Over time, this gentle architecture begins to change the story you carry about yourself. You are no longer the person chasing a door that never opens. You are a person living a pattern that naturally opens doors. You are no longer bargaining with anxiety for a little relief. You are practicing a way that keeps anxiety small enough to hear wisdom speak. The same days that once felt like a maze now feel like a path through a quiet wood, with light between the branches and ground that supports every step. The outer world will still shift and surprise, but the inner world will hold. Let a simple wonder rise as this chapter closes, and let it shape the days that follow without strain. Which rhythm in this week will carry the 5 more faithfully, and how will your life sound when wisdom sets the tempo? This moment can be a soft landing after a long road. The room quiets in small ways, screens dim, thoughts slow. The heart begins to find a steadier drum. A gentle warmth gathers at the center of the chest, not dramatic, just present, like a small lantern that has always been there and is finally being noticed. Nothing has to be forced. Nothing has to be perfect. Calm arrives the way evening arrives, and with it a sense that wisdom has weight, and that weight can hold. A picture rises of stones shaped in silence. Each stone carries the memory of patient hands. Edges meet edges without struggle, as if the wall had been waiting for this hour. The mind often feels like that during frantic seasons, a pile of pieces without harmony. Then sequence appears, and the pieces know where to rest. Order before the gold. The nervous system hears this order and eases its alarms. Breath deepens without being told. Shoulders lower without a command. The body understands that safe structure is returning. Another picture enters of a ledger in morning light. Lines are clear. Totals add without squinting. No page hides under a cup. The room feels larger because nothing needs to be concealed. The mind loves this kind of daylight. It can plan with the light on. It can think without spending energy on disguise. Clean hands compound. The heart recognizes this sentence as both promise and medicine, a way to live that lets sleep be sleep and work be work. There is the sound of steel greeting stone at a quiet bench. No rush, only care. The tool will meet the day with a readiness that does not strain. The lesson is simple and deep. Sharpen before you swing. In the body, this feels like lowered friction, like movements that glide where they used to grind. In the spirit, it feels like dignity returning to effort, like being trusted again by your own attention. Water appears now, moving through sun and shadow. It accepts what comes and releases what must go. Tributaries join, and the current strengthens without noise. Flow over hoard. The phrase settles like a riverstone in the palm. The body softens at the idea that generosity does not empty, but circulates, that diversification does not scatter, but steadies, that learning does not delay profit, but matures it. Fear loosens when the river reminds it that life continues. A city gate comes into view. Early light, few voices. A small circle where truth sounds calm. Questions are welcomed here not as accusations, but as lanterns. Plans stabilized by counsel. The words feel like shelter. They feel like a respectful hand on the shoulder before a big decision, a presence that says you are not required to carry everything alone, and that wise voices can share the weight without stealing the choice. All 5 images draw closer until they begin to overlap. The stones stand in order. The ledger opens to light, the edge holds, the river moves, the gate watches. This is less a performance and more a posture. The posture speaks to the brain in a language it understands: safety, clarity, rhythm, connection. With these in place, the chemistry of panic yields to the chemistry of focus. The body finds the state in which good work is possible and sustainable. The spirit finds the state in which meaning is clear and greed grows quiet. In this atmosphere, wealth stops feeling like a chase scene and begins to feel like a garden. Gardens do not sprint. Gardens keep covenant with seasons. The hands in a garden know that attention is never wasted and that patience is a kind of intelligence. The mind can rest inside that truth. The timeline widens. The soul stops bargaining with anxiety and starts conversing with wisdom. Prosperity becomes an echo rather than an idol, a result rather than a ruler. There is a gentle recognition that the future is already leaning toward you, not as a guarantee, but as a possibility that grows stronger when peace goes first. The map is not every street and corner, yet the path is visible enough for today. A few next steps rise without pressure. A few old fears shrink without a fight. The present holds enough light to move with dignity. Keep close the short phrases gathered along the way. Wisdom before wealth. Order before increase. Clean hands compound. Sharpen before you swing. Flow over hoard. Plans stabilized by counsel. Let them live where your breath can reach them, like lines etched into a ring you turn with your thumb when nerves begin to chatter. Repetition is not a trick here. Repetition is a way of teaching the body that a new story is true. One quiet question can linger like a bell after it has been struck. Which image will guide the next small move so that peace leads and prosperity follows? There is a certain hush that descends when the soul recognizes its own path, a quiet that is neither empty nor vague, but full of direction, like the moment before dawn when the shapes of the world return and you can finally see where to place your feet. And in this hush, something steady has been born in you that does not depend on noise or luck, because it rests on patterns that hold. You have walked through images that do not strain to persuade because they already live in the bones of wisdom. The stones shaped in silence before any public beauty. The ledger open to clean light where nothing trembles. The blade brought to the whetstone until effort becomes grace, the river that refuses to stagnate and therefore keeps its life, the gate where counsel turns the heat of pressure into the warmth of clarity, and taken together they form a way of being that wealth can trust. What changes now is not only your plans, but the person who carries them, because identity grows from practiced truth, and practiced truth grows from alignment. And alignment is simply the marriage of inner atmosphere and outer action, where peace leads and prosperity follows as a faithful companion, rather than a demanding master that never lets you sleep. You may still meet hard days and uncertain weather, yet the scaffolding within you will not sway as it once did, since order shelters attention, integrity quiets the nervous system, preparation multiplies strength, generosity unlocks community, and counsel keeps your steps from wandering into the same old traps. And because these movements live together, they protect one another. And they protect you. The mind that once scattered will begin to gather itself because it senses a home. The heart that once braced for impact will begin to release because it senses safety. The body that once chased every fire will begin to rest because it senses a trustworthy rhythm. And from that rest, you will do the kind of work that adds rather than erodes, the kind that builds rather than burns, the kind that lasts without taking your joy as payment. You have heard short lines meant to be held in the palm like smooth stones that remember the river, wisdom before wealth, order before increase. Clean hands compound, sharpen before you swing, flow over hoard, plans stabilized by counsel, and they are not slogans to repeat in fear, but anchors to return to when old winds rise, small phrases that carry large rooms where your future can breathe. If there is a single truth to carry into the days ahead, it is this simple mercy, that prosperity is not a personality you must become, but a pattern you can practice with tenderness and resolve. And every time you honor the pattern, you loosen the old story that called you late or unlucky or not enough, while every time you loosen that story, you make room for a quieter one that tells the truth about you. Let the final word arrive without hurry and linger like a bell after the strike. If wealth follows wisdom and peace sets the tempo, what will you align first so that prosperity can come without taking your soul to purchase it?